Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So today I want to talk a little bit more about Bobbin. There could be much more to Bobbin, his bounty, and everything that we learned in the last chapter than may meet the eye. And so I've already heard people talking about this, but I want to add in my 2 cents on the topic and give you guys some information if you're not yet aware. But last chapter we learned 2 things about Bobbin, and these 2 things contradict each other. On one hand, we have Bobbins Bounty, which, as a side note, MangaStream initially translated it as 155 million berries. However, it's even less than that. It's what the spoilers said it was, which is 105.5 million berries. So that is a ridiculously low bounty for someone who we expected to be very strong. But on the other hand, we learned that Bobbin's rank within the Big Mom crew is that of the Bishop. And so at this point it seems pretty obvious that this is the ranking denoting somebody who is not actually related to Big Mom in any way, but is part of the Big Mom Pirates. And so the strongest people of this group get some sort of ranking, whether it be Knight, Bishop, King, or Queen, or Rook. And so guys, while interesting, this wouldn't actually be something that we could use to speculate very persuasively unless we had something to compare it to. And fun fact, we do. Bobbin is the Bishop and Tamago was actually ranked as the Knight. And so we actually know Tamago's bounty, and when comparing it to Bobbin's bounty, there's a huge discrepancy because Tamago's bounty is 429 million as compared to Bobbin's 105.5 million. And so what's the relationship between the Bishop and the Knight? Like if these are all in relation to chess pieces, then perhaps we can compare Bobbin's sort of rank as Bishop to Peckham's rank as a Knight. And I took some time to actually research chess and how people actually value each piece. And fun fact, the Knight and the Bishop are most commonly ranked as the same. Although if you dig really deep into it, there are some people out there who believe the Bishop to be a more valuable piece than the Knight, but it is not the other way around. So if you're going to look at this from Oda's perspective, he's either valuing the Bishop and the Knight the same if they are in relation to how valuable chess pieces actually are in the real game, or perhaps the Bishop is slightly more valuable. But no matter how you look at it, Bobbin's bounty does not make any sense. If this Bishop ranking means anything at all, I think we can almost guarantee that Bobbin will at the very least be on the same level as Tamago as a fighter. Or if not just as a fighter, perhaps he will just have this ranking because of how much he offers to Big Mom's crew in some way. Like Bobbin's abilities in some way are just so useful to Big Mom that it doesn't matter that on a one-on-one fight perhaps he isn't as strong as someone like Tamago. Anyway guys, long story short on this one, the fact that Bobbin's ranking is that of a Bishop, and Oda usually crosses his T's and dots his I's when it comes to research, I can only assume that he understands that the chess piece of a Knight and a Bishop have approximately the same ranking, and therefore from this information, Bobbin's bounty seems misleading. And so let's actually address the question, why is Bobbin's bounty so low, despite him being such a high-ranking member of Big Mom's crew? So firstly, I think we should keep in mind that your bounty is determined by the world government. Basically, the more the world government perceives you as a threat, the higher that they will raise your bounty. So a really good example is to look at this supernova. Captain Kidd, Monkey D. Luffy, and Trafalgar Law. I think before the time skip, it's very easy to believe that Trafalgar Law was pretty much an equal to Luffy, maybe even stronger at that particular time. However, his bounty was significantly lower than both Kidd and Luffy because both Kidd and Luffy demonstrated very effectively to the world government that they were a threat. Captain Kidd had, I think he injured civilians, killed a lot of civilians, etc., which is why he had an extremely high bounty. And of course, Luffy straight up declared war on the world government and attacked Enies Lobby, etc. Whereas Trafalgar Law is not the type of character to do that kind of thing, therefore his bounty was lower. So it literally could be as simple as Bobbin in some way has flown under the radar for the world government. Basically, Tamago, the world government is sure that Tamago is a threat, while Bobbin, I guess, they underestimate. Whether that be because Bobbin isn't in the action very often compared to Tamago, or maybe his abilities work in a way that makes it very hard to pinpoint him as as being like the culprit or something like that. But I'm not really sure what the significance of all of this would really be, and so for Oda to take the time to make sure that Bobbins Bounty was so low makes me wonder if there's actually something else going on here. And so that's what I want to point to, another thing that I've heard people talk about, but I definitely want to say something on, which is that you'll notice that Bobbin wears a pretty ridiculous mask. Almost like he's wearing like a paper bag over his head with like half the bag cut off and then a little hole made over his mouth. Now this is where I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and just be crazy for a moment here, but we know of several characters who, through the use of disguises, sort of evaded direct notice from the world government. The first person that I'm going to talk about is from the Big Mom Pirates in Cracker. Cracker used his sort of biscuit armor so that the world government wasn't entirely aware of what Cracker actually looked like. And so I would imagine that if the world government was aware of what Cracker's powers actually were, what he was capable of doing, and that this was only just a shell that he could create in an endless amount of time, that his bounty would have been significantly higher. We can also look at someone like Usopp, who the world government was clearly not aware that Usopp existed, because in Usopp's first bounty poster, he was called Sogeking. So anyway guys, long story short here is I think that the fact that Bobbin is actually wearing some kind of mask might actually be important for, you know, the world government actually having confused Bobbin with the masked Bobbin, basically. Like, it sounds crazy, but it actually seems like something Oda would do, and the whole purpose of this is to confuse us as to what Bobbin's bounty actually is. The world government thinks that the masked Bobbin is its own unique person who is not as strong as the real Bobbin, who, when he takes off his mask, is on the same level as someone like Tamago. But anyway, that's just some food for thought. But I know that a lot of people are probably going to mention, or want me to mention, the fact that in the last chapter of One Piece, Bobbin is revealed to have the name Bobbin the Fixer. But when we first learned Bobbin's epithet in chapter 845, he was called Thrifty Bobbin, or in the official Viz translations, Bobbin the Disposer. And so while on the surface this might actually add evidence to the fact that there may in fact be two Bobbins, with perhaps two different bounties, I don't actually believe this to be the case. I think that in both situations, Bobbin was probably called Bobbin the Disposer, and this is because Yonko Productions, who is a translator who provides us the spoilers oftentimes for many chapters, as well as uploads his translated version of the One Piece chapter as well on his website. He translates Bobbin's epithet in the latest chapter as Bobbin the Disposer. Now, I don't know Japanese, I can't read Japanese, but I can understand the concept that one word can be translated potentially in many different ways. And so I honestly just believe Bobbin the Fixer is another way of translating the characters, which could also spell Bobbin the Disposer. But I think that more light will be shed on this when the official translation is given to us, which usually happens on Monday. But anyway guys, there's some other things that I want to talk about as well, besides Bobbin's bounty not really making sense with his rank on Big Mom's pirate crew, which is that we now have a knight and a bishop. And so this opens the door for a couple more ranking characters who have rankings inside of her crew. So we could potentially have the Rook, as well as potentially the Queen or King. And so the Queen or King, one of those characters, could just be Big Mom herself. But regardless of whether or not Big Mom is included or not, we have at least two characters probably who would be stronger than Tamago, because the Rook, as well as a chess piece, is a more valuable piece than both the Bishop and the Knight. And so this is really, really interesting. Oh, and we can't also forget that in an actual chessboard, there's actually two Knights, two Bishops, and two Rooks. So anyway guys, this is just what we needed, another really strong member of the Big Mom Pirates that has yet to be revealed. We're already still waiting on Katakuri or Potato Starch. And so who could be, or who are really the candidates for who this could potentially be? And so on one hand, we could have no way of knowing. However, I do think that there is some potential that Oda may have foreshadowed this character already. The first thing that I want to point your attention to was back in chapter 829, we were given this particular panel showing these three characters who were later revealed to be Big Mom's children, and all 3 of them are part of the Dairy Squad. I don't actually remember exactly what they're called, but it's like the Dairy Squad. Basically, they're a group, right? And so there's actually 2 other characters that have yet to be revealed that were introduced in the same chapter along with Tamago. So while all 3 of these characters were all revealed in the same panel, all Big Mom's children, all connected in some way, we have Tamago connected with these 2 characters in particular. We have this clown-looking Gene Simmons dude, and then we have this scary-looking girl with the hat who seems to have like a little dwarf pal who has the same hat as her. I'm honestly wondering if we're looking at potentially the Rook here, or perhaps even the Queen, or maybe that these will be another Bishop and another Knight. It's really hard to be certain, but one thing I am certain of is that these characters got screen time. We will see them again. We haven't seen them really again do anything significant, and with the reveal that there are other ranked members of Big Mom's crew, these could be potentially part of that group. But anyway, guys, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike the video if you dislike the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.